Sometimes it's nice to have things to complain about, which I feel in part is kind of why people self-sabotage. Because if you're doing good, then you'll have nothing to complain about. Identity crisis. Um, but that's an oversimplification of a very complicated mental mechanism that a lot of people experience as far as in regards to you know, self sabotage and stuff. There's a lot more that goes into that. I'm just being silly for the sake of entertainment and conversation's sake. But to go into it for like zero point 0.5 seconds, you know, self sabotage is fucking real, and there's usually more deep setted things that go into like what a self sabotage looks like and why one does self sabotage. There could be fears that are manifesting of the change that you're experiencing, an identity crisis I've mentioned before. There could be a lot of reasons about self sabotage. How did I get on this? I don't know. Seeing I just love to complain. It's like that's so true. I resonate with that. Like it's fun to have things to talk about, right? Because otherwise your life is boring. And then if your life is boring, does anyone give a shit about you? And the answer is yeah, of course people still give a shit about you, but you've conditioned yourself to believe that, people aren't going to give a shit about you unless you have something to say of meaning. And honestly, a lot of us, for the most part, sometimes don't have something to say of meaning, or the things that we say are only meaningful to ourselves, which is not necessarily true. It's just that a lot of us kind of keep a lot of thoughts to ourselves because we're conditioned to, have to be interesting, have to be entertaining to maintain friendship, to be worthy of love, to get really fucking deep about this, about core belief of like, I'm not worthy of love unless I'm helpful. I'm being entertaining, or I'm being, who these people know me to be the complainer, right? Um, so it's rough. It's hard. Can you talk about learned helplessness? Sure. I'll spin this into learned helplessness. So let's say you're in the midst of recovery, but you find yourself every time like you get close to like some sort of goal, you hold yourself back and you tell yourself no, right? Part of that can be the learned helplessness of, thinking like, you still hold this core belief in your head of like, even if I do this thing, I'm still going to be a failure and I'm still not going to succeed. That's not exactly learned helplessness. I suppose it kind of is, but it's not the traditional learned helplessness we learn about. The learned helplessness that we usually learn about is kind of like the dog in the cage example, right? If you cage a dog for many many years, and then all of a sudden someone open and the dog keeps trying to jump out of the cage, and every time the dog tries to jump out of the cage, he gets shocked, and then eventually someone comes along and opens the cage and doesn't have anything to shock the dog, but the dog thinks it's going to get shocked anyway, so it decides not to jump out of the cage because it doesn't want to get shocked. In a similar way, when we're trying to progress in our lives, when we're trying to move forward, we often feel like, even if we do move forward, we have some sort of core belief, either consciously we're saying it to ourselves or subconsciously, where we're just like, no, if I try to do this thing, I'm going to end up getting hurt, or it's just not going to work out. And we hold ourselves back. So there we go. I've tied it in. We hold ourselves back from, doing the thing that we need to do to be able to advance in whatever shape, way, form, metaphorical advancement in our life. And that's learned helplessness. That's learned helplessness in a nutshell, really, is continuing to tell yourself this story of I cannot because of XYZ reasons that are outside of my control, right? But the fact of the matter is, is sometimes we're in a spot where it's just like those XYZ reasons that are out of our control, they don't affect us anymore. Like that, we're not affected by them anymore, but we still, our brain is very quick. Just like when it comes to here, I'm even going to tie this into the topic of the month. Just like when it comes to being a DID system, and that your brain makes up, gaps in your memory, and tries to explain it to you of like, why do you have this gap in memory? Oh, because of this. Oh yeah, of course. You know, in the same way, your brain will make up the gap, even if that thing in your life is not holding you back anymore. Your brain's still going to make the gap to hold on to that core belief, because holding on to that core belief is more important to your survival, or it was at that time in your life. And thusly, again, your brain has at its core learned that in order to survive, we must avoid moving forward, because to move forward means to get hurt. Even if the original source of hurt is no longer in our lives, our brain is going to make up another reason, another excuse, either subconsciously or consciously, about why we cannot move forward, because if we move forward, then we are not safe anymore. And you have to unlearn that. You have to really fucking unlearn that. Deep, very, very dive very, very deep and ask yourself not just why questions, but what is this serving? What is this belief serving me? What has this belief served me in the past? Because it has. There is no such thing in human behaviorism, and I hate to say the word behaviorism, but there's no such thing as a unnecessary behavior. This is something that they have researched time and time again in the entire field of psychology. Every single thing a person does, ever, can be explained and has a purpose. Now, whatever that purpose is, maybe that purpose's purpose has kind of been outdated for many years, And you're saying, well, like, does this mean that there's no free will? No, of course, there's always free will. We're not going to go down that pathway. But, so what I'm saying is, like, every single thing that we do has a point, but it doesn't mean that the thing that we originally did that thing for still exists. For example, hurt people, right? So let's say you have a bully, bully in 5th grade, bullies all the little kids, and, we're just like, why is this person bullying? Maybe the reason is because at home life is pretty rough. They're getting beat up by their parents, or they're seeing their parents fight, and so in their mind, they're like, okay, well, in order to stay safe, in order to, like, express my feelings, because I have to express my feelings, I have to be tough, I have to bully others, I have to punch other people, I have to make sure that everyone knows that I'm strong, because secretly they feel very, very, very weak, right? They feel very weak, they feel very vulnerable, they feel very out of control in their living situation, so they project that onto other people and make other people feel weak so they can feel strong, so they can feel in control, right? And that works. It for better or for worse, that works. It helps them feel better to bully other kids and be a mean kid. And then, growing up, either those behaviors are reinforced or punished, and punishment doesn't really help with extincting any behavior. It doesn't make a bully stop bullying, honestly. More often than not, any attention is seen as a good thing, is seen as a positive. It's positive punishment. You hit a kid back for hitting you, and they're not really, maybe they're dissuaded from hitting that kid specifically, and it means, okay, I can't pick on that kid anymore, but it means I'm still going to pick on other kids, So anyway, basically what I'm saying is like, this kid keeps bullying kids, right? And then he grows up, and then he realizes, oh wait, there's consequences for my bullying. And then later, if this person ever goes to therapy, kind of starts to realize, the reason that I'm so angry all the time, and that I bully people, and I bullied a lot of people in school, is because I felt out of control. But now I have my own life away from my parents, and I have control of my life in other ways. Do I need to hold on to this belief that I need to belittle others to feel good about myself anymore? And the answer is no. The answer is no. The answer is I can let that go. But you have to find what that is for you. You have to find what that is for you in order to let go of what your brain is holding so desperately onto. Because at the end of the day, again, every single behavior can be explained and has a purpose. And usually the purpose is something around in the aspect of either self-preservation or, self-ego preservation. Again, we can just pull up Maslow's chart real quick. And literally you'll see every single behavior eventually comes down to one of these, like, first 3 things of trying to preserve. How do I get my next breath of air? How do I get my next sip of water? How do I get my food? What behaviors do I need to do in order to make sure that I have these things? Because if I'm in a competitive environment and these things are being threatened, then I'm going to be extra aggressive in order to assert that I deserve these things, which again can then, you know, translate to a core belief of, you know, do I deserve these things? You're asking yourself if you're deserving of these things because these things were threatened so much at an early age. Same with personal security, same with love and belonging. You know, if you don't feel like you belong, if you're a gay kid growing up and in a homophobic environment, you're not going to feel very fucking good about yourself, and you're going to start to really believe all the things that people are telling you around you. You're going to start to believe, I am not worthy of life. So what do you need to do? What does your brain fucking translate that into some sort of behavior of, like, basically lashing out, telling everyone, fuck off, go away. I don't want to hear it. Because to hear people tell you that you do not matter is death. And to not lash out would be to accept your death. So that's why